What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rantin review. We're talking today about the Disney Plus series WandaVision, episodes 1 through 3. It's been an interesting show, not quite what I think a lot of people expected, but we're going to cover some of the interesting points of episodes 1 through 3 in this video and let you know some of the Easter eggs and some of where this is going if you're a little confused. Before we get to any of that though, of course, if you like this video, if you enjoy having more videos like this on this channel, hit that like button down below, subscribe to the channel, and do a little bit of Wanda magic, a little WandaVision on that notification bell so you know when I have another review of WandaVision. But let's get to the show this week. So episode 3 came out this week, and this again is following the first 2 episodes that were dropped last weekend. They've all been period piece stories. So the first episode was kind of this 1950s, I Love Lucy type of show, the honeymooners kind of thing, set in that time span. It's actually pretty interesting to see how, as they're going through the decades, how social norms have changed. That this is very much in the era back then that I think most people probably, a lot of people today would find offensive of, Vision goes to work at the job and Wanda's at home, the homemaker, and they have their zany antics about living home suburban life. We're so far away from that at this point in history. It's just, having lived through some of that stuff myself on the tail end, it's kind of funny. Episode 2 was more, a little bit more modernized. It was in the 60s, so you had a little bit of that Bewitched thing, which was very ironically not too far off from what's going on here. Because in Bewitched, in that TV show, it was about a woman who was a witch who was married to a man, and the weird things would happen, and the neighbors would notice or not notice, and that was kind of what Vision and Wanda were going for. That was an obvious ploy. And then episode 3, we're in the 70s, which is kind of more of a Brady Bunch, Partridge Family kind of vibe. I was a little bit disappointed because Deborah Jo Rupp was on episodes 1 and 2, and they didn't at least have some sort of cameo or some sort of little Easter egg to that 70s show by putting her on here. She wasn't even in the episode at all. But that is understandable, though. There's so many Easter eggs in these shows. You've got stuff with Mephisto showing up. We've got stuff with Wonder Man showing up. And of course, now in episode 3, Wanda's pregnant. And she has twins, in fact. And they do this funny thing where they're going over whether it's going to be Billy or Tommy. And of course, those are the names for, I believe it's Wiccan and Quick or something like that in the comic books, the actual children of Wanda and Vision from a very similar scenario, the House of M storyline in the comic books. This is Marvel's, the MCU, Marvel Studios' take on that, and they're kind of adapting it, which you're starting to see now. The famous thing from the comic book series was that at the end of it, during it, Wanda said, no more mutants, and that for a period of time in the Marvel universe, the comic book universe wiped out mutants, which means the X-Men, everybody associated with that. Now, the funny theory that a lot of people have is that in this show, they're kind of reverse it because Marvel Studios and Disney did finally get the rights to the X-Men in the MCU, along with the Fantastic Four and some other characters, that now that they can put the X-Men in the MCU, instead of Wanda saying no more mutants and getting rid of them, it probably or might be the reverse, and she says more mutants and actually brings the X-Men in to the MCU. I do love that theory. We'll see over the next couple of weeks as the episodes continue to drop whether or not that will be the case. Another thing that's going on as far as Easter eggs, which are tied to the plot as well, is the number of S.W.O.R.D agents. In the comic book, S.W.O.R.D was more of the outer space threats, whereas S.H.I.E.L.D. was the on-planet Earth-based threats. Someone associated with that is Monica Rambeau, who's been a character that a lot of people have been wanting to see more fleshed out in the MCU. She's been in a couple of WandaVision episodes thus far, and we learn a little bit more about her in episode 3, that the neighbors, who are also integral to all of this, because one of the neighbors is trying to chop through the brick wall between his house and Vision and Wanda's property, and he's like, oh, I guess I'm doing that, and then he keeps doing it with this yeah, I am. Look at this, there's a lot of creepy stuff in this series so far. Metaphorically, it was the same thing with the bees in episode 2 when the guy came out of the sewer manhole and he looked like he had a hazmat suit on with a bunch of bees flying around him. These are all things alluding to the fact that S.W.O.R.D is trying to get in and deal with what's going on inside of this town that apparently Wanda has taken over. The main thing again about episode 3 though is that the twins are born, and then Wanda references the fact to the Monica Rambeau character that she had a brother before, Pietro, and then we get this flashback, well not a flashback, but we get a callback to, oh yeah, that's right, Age of Ultron, which seems like centuries ago at this point, that Quicksilver, when Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch first came into the MCU, they were twins and they were working for Von Strucker, and in the Avengers Age of Ultron, one of the lesser favorite Marvel movies, Quicksilver dies trying to save Hawkeye, sacrificing himself for Hawkeye and his little kid, and Wanda lost it at that point in time. And Monica Rambeau, something triggers in her because she's kind of captive in this place too, and she goes, Pietro, he was killed by Ultron, wasn't he? And Wanda starts to flip out again. There are several instances of that, which is, I really find that the whole dichotomy of her being in this world, kind of controlling it, but not in total control, and any little thing from the outside world threatens to like break this whole thing down. There's a lot of that goes on in the show. Wanda will rewind certain situations, and like the Beehive guy situation coming out of the manhole. You also had the part where Vision in episode 3 started, kind of talking to her, kind of rationalizing with her. It's like, Wanda, there's a lot of weird stuff going on. This doesn't seem right. And she just snaps it back, does a jump cut literally to go back in time to have him say it in a different way, so he's not going to talk about anything that's going to break this vision, ironically enough, that she's having of reality. Monica Rambeau winds up getting booted out of there. Scarlet Witch, things get really weird near the end of this episode, and Vision's having a conversation outside with the neighbors where they're almost spill the beans on what's going on to him, because again, this version of Vision is all made up in Scarlet Witch's head, but he's as real as he would have been. She's basically recreated who he was in this alternate reality world that she lives in. And the weird thing about it is these S.W.O.R.D agents have to kind of walk the tightrope about what are they going to tell them and when are they going to tell Vision and Wanda what's going on. Wanda, however, is not having anything about Monica Rambeau mentioning her brother Pietro being killed by Ultron. So when Vision comes back into the house, she's not there anymore. And Wanda's kind of in a trance going, oh yeah, she had to go, blah, blah, blah. Now the neighbors told Vision that character she doesn't really live there. She doesn't even have a house. So it's all of this weird Desi Arnaz, Leave It to Beaver, the Partridge Family world that Wanda has constructed for herself is starting to deteriorate. And again, the big wonder is about what episode we're going to get to it where the plot really starts going along as far as the main plot. The first 3 episodes have been a lot of setup about it's really getting you into that world and in that mindset of this is the world they're delivering in. Depending on whether or not you've seen before or you even like sitcoms from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I mean, I grew up with a lot of that stuff, so this is almost kind of charming to see TV shows handled like that again, and they do still have a sort of charm, that kind of innocent, less controversial, less in-your-face, more idealized form of situational comedy, as opposed to modern era where everything's got to be hyper-realistic. It was kind of charming to watch that. I know some people are going to have a problem with that because either they've never seen TV like that and it just seems weird and strange to them, or they never really liked that kind of sitcom anyway. And the fact that 90% of these first 3 episodes are set within those sitcom and within those eras that those sitcoms happen with those same kind of really innocent TV storylines. It might be jarring to some people. What's funny about that to me is that was initially the problem with Agents of S.W.O.R.D. Way back when the MCU, about 8 years ago, when they announced after Avengers, the first Avengers movie, that they were going to have a TV show. And part of the thing I think a lot of people didn't like about Agents of S.W.O.R.D. and Agent Carter and some of the other shows that were on ABC is that they were TV shows and they were constrained by the formats that you had to construct TV shows in. So it's really interesting here that with WandaVision, they voluntarily put themselves in those constraints, but we all know that there's a greater thing outside of all of them. When Rambeau gets kicked out of WandaVision land, she winds up coming out of thin air through what looks like TV static in the real world and getting plopped on with her outfit on from the 70s. So either she went in with that, or when she went in there, because she was in Wanda's world, all of that actually manifests as real, and even when she's kicked out of there, all the clothes and everything that Monica Rambeau wore in there is real. We see a bunch of S.W.O.R.D agents swarm on her. They've got their weapons drawn, which is a little weird if she was there. She did talk about in the WandaVision world about getting a promotion, so that may be some sort of allusion to Monica Rambeau's character getting a promotion as part of the S.W.O.R.D agents in the real world. Again, all of these mysteries coming up, all of these things, we're doing it for the children. I mean, is that just talking about Wanda's twins, or are there these other children in there? There are, again, as I mentioned before, there are references to Mephisto, who is one of the more interesting villains in the Marvel comic book universe. The one neighbor talks about Ralph all the time. Ralph was a name for Mephisto in the comic books, or one of his alter egos that he went by. So a lot of people are speculating whether or not that is, because what happens in WandaVision is going to tie into the next Doctor Strange movie, which is the Multiverse of Madness, which Wanda will have a big role in. And a lot of speculation is that Mephisto is either going to be the main villain or one of the characters, one of the antagonists in that film, and that WandaVision we'll start seeing some of that as we get further and further into the new era of the MCU. Overall, I think that the shows are good. They're decent shows. They're interesting. It's probably not what a lot of Marvel fans want to see, but I think the payoff is going to be, if you do watch these first 3, 4, 5 episodes, however long they roll with this. When you get to the second half of the season and things start falling apart and we start getting the answers to all these questions we have, I think it'll all pay off from the fact that they did stick to their guns and go through, we're going to do 50 sitcoms, 60 sitcoms, 70 sitcoms, 80 sitcoms, 90 sitcoms, etc. I think they'll probably get up to the 2000s, and then so you're thinking about 6 episodes. By episode 6, things are probably going to fall apart at that point, just given the time frame that they're doing in it. I want to know, however, what you guys think about WandaVision. Are you enjoying the shows? Do you think they're boring? Do you find it intriguing? Do you like the mystery? Do you think it's a little bit too much? Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until then, I will see you guys on here for more news, reviews, and rumors here on the Rantin Review. Have a good day.